They couldn't really argue with that. The royal annals from the House of Records were brought forth. With much care they were read. On and onto the first royal couple, there were 3 sons and no daughters born to them. The firstborn was Anki. He died on the throne and had no offspring. The middle son in his stead was Anib, and Shargal was his firstborn, and to the throne he ascended. After him, on the throne of kingship by the firstborn did not continue. So it didn't continue on that far. And this goes on and on and on. They're talking about blah, blah. Is he, they're trying to figure out, does he have the right to be king? Is he a usurper? This, that, and the other. Secession must be reconsidered to the assembly, he said. Through neither firstborn nor by the queen of a son of pure seed am I descended. The essence of On in me is preserved, by no concubine diluted. So he's saying, basically, yes, she had, On had, my father had sex with, a person who wasn't of the bloodline, but it didn't dilute it. I'm still part of he's trying to just convince these people that he is one of them through the bloodline so that he can, maintain power. They asked for his name. It is Anu. After my forefather, I named. Now, what's interesting about that? Wow. So this is the story of Anu. So the guy who took over and usurped the throne was Anu, and we know that Anu's sons later on were Enlil and Enki. So Enlil and Enki, who allegedly caused all this havoc on Earth, the flood and genetic manipulation and all this stuff, and seeding mankind with these phony religions, were the result of someone who may or may not have actually been a part of the royal bloodline. So if that's true, and these people that are in charge and power today, and presidents, kings, queens, power structure all over the world, that are part of this bloodline, and they're basing their whole divine right to rule on the fact that they're a part of these bloodlines, right? If that's true, then that would make them imposters. That would make them because from what this genealogical and historical record of the ancestors of the Anunnaki tells us, is that it wasn't the people who had been in the bloodlines and in the power structure and everything up to that point who made the decision to Earth. They seemed to act like that was taboo. Then this guy comes in, kills the king, takes over, and then goes through this big, long drawn out ordeal of being in front of the council and show, oh, look at me. And I came from this bloodline, and my baby daddy was over here, and, he fucked this whore, the concubine, and just because she's a whore doesn't mean I'm not a part of the bloodline. All this convincing going on, you see? So again, that would make this very, very interesting. That would prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that these people that, oh, maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe that's why they've been creating space-based weapons. Maybe, they're scared, because if there's something to this, if this is real, then that would mean that at some point, the real bloodlines of power, if any of these people still exist anywhere, could actually feasibly come back and call out the power structure here on Earth as being the usurpers and the descendants of the usurper who took over the throne on Nibiru. They could very well come here and say, we need help fixing our atmosphere, but, they came down here and set this up and basically did it against our wishes. Boy, that could be. No wonder they don't want us knowing what this information is. My goodness, see, it just becomes more clear every time we read it. They asked him what his name was, and he said, my name is Anu, after my forefather I am named. They inquired about his generations. Of On's 3 sons, he reminded them. Anki was the firstborn. Without a son or daughter, he died. And Neb was the middle son. Instead of Anki, to the throne he descended. Anib, the daughter of his younger brother, took to be wife from them onward to the succession in the annals was recorded. Who was that younger brother? A son of On and Antu, that was of purest seed. The counselors looked with wonderment at each other. Inuru was his name. Anu to them announced that he was my great ancestor. His spouse, Ninuru, was a half-sister. Her son was firstborn. Inama was his name. And from the throneship, we were removed. From On's pure seed, we were not removed. So they basically, at some point, took out someone who had the right to be in power and tried to say that they weren't a part of the bloodline when they were. Okay. Though by different offsprings of one ancestor, we were both descended. Let us live in peace together and return abundance to Nibiru. Let me keep the throne. Let you keep the succession. Meaning, all right, well, let's do it like this. You let me stay in charge and have power and get some stuff done. And when I'm done and I'm old and I die, I'll pass it on to you. And then your bloodline can keep it going after that. Nice little compromise to keep everybody happy, huh? To the council words he directed, let Anu, the crown prince, be. Let him be my successor. Let his son, my daughter, espouse. Let succession be united. Anu bowed before the council, and to the assembly he declared, Alalu's cupbearer I shall be. His successor in waiting, a son of mine, a daughter of his as bride, I shall choose. That was the council's decision, and in the royal annals it was inscribed. In this manner, Alalu on the throne remained seated. He summoned the sages, the savants, and the commanders for him to consult in deciding that, and from that he gained much knowledge. Let celestial boats be constructed to seek the gold in the hammered bracelet, he decided. So again, he usurps the crown, takes over, convinces them, hey, you let me get in here and get some stuff done, and then I'll make sure when I'm done that, we'll still continue the bloodline thing and pass down the power. And so what is the first thing he decides to do? Let's build the celestial boats. Let's build the crafts. Let's go to the hammered bracelet, the area around the earth, and let's get the gold and bring it back here and fix our atmosphere. And their first try was essentially no good. By the hammered bracelets, the boats were crushed. None of them returned. Let the weapons of terror enter the bowels of Nibiru. Let Nibiru be cut open. Let the volcanoes again erupt, he then commanded. So this asshole tries to, build these ships to go and get the gold. It fails. They are destroyed. And then he gets pissed off and unleashes, weather weapons and says, let the volcanoes erupt, unleashes nuclear weapons. With weapons of terror, skyborne chariots were armed with terror missiles from the skies where the volcano struck. Oh, so he sent up the ships and launched nuclear weapons inside of the volcanoes of Nibiru. The mountains swayed, the valleys shuddered as great brilliances with thunder exploded. In the land, there was much rejoicing. Everybody was expecting there was going to be an abundance of food and things were going to get better. And it just continued to get worse. The volcanoes did not increase. The atmosphere did not heal. And it kept going around its orbit, and it kept getting colder and colder on Nibiru. Of rocks and boulders was it together hammered. Like orphans with no mother, they banded together, surging back and forth a bygone destiny they followed. Their doings were loathsome, troubling their ways. Nibiru's probing chariots like preying lions they devoured. So something basically, devoured these spaceships. The precious gold needed for surviving, they refused to dislodge. The chariot of Alalu toward the hammered bracelet was headlong moving. The ferocious builders in close combat to boldly face. So there's definitely a fight going on here. Alalu, the firestones in his chariot more strongly stirred up. That which shows the way, with steady hands he directed. The ominous boulders against the chariot charged forward like an enemy in battle attacking. Toward them, Alalu shot a death-dealing missile from his spaceship. That's literally what it says. This is towards them, Alalu, a death-dealing missile from the chariot let loose. So he shot a missile out of a spaceship. Then another and another against the enemy. The terror weapons he thrust. So he's shooting nukes. This is great. How come nobody's made a sci-fi movie out of this shit yet? Somebody will now that I've said it. Make billions of dollars, and I wish I would have done it. That always happens to me. As frightened warriors, the boulders turned back, a path for Alalu granting. Like by a spell, the hammered bracelet, a doorway to the king, it opened. That sounds like a Stargate. So a Stargate opened. In the dark deepness, Alalu, the heavens, he could clearly see. By the bracelet's ferocity, he was not defeated. His mission was not ended. In the distance, the sun's fiery ball was sending forth its brilliance, welcoming rays towards Alalu it was emitting. Before it was a red-brown planet on its orbit, the sixth in count of celestial gods it was. Alalu could but glimpse it. On its destined course from Alalu's path, it was quickly moving. Then snow-hued earth appeared, the seventh in the celestial count. So he's getting, he blows up and blows this stuff out of the way, the people that are chasing him. And then, so they're chasing him from Nibiru. He shoots these nuclear weapons, blows them up, and starts making his way towards Earth, presumably to come down and seed us with culture and information and religion and to call himself a god and everything else. Toward the planet, Alalu set his course to a destination most inviting. Smaller than Nibiru was its alluring ball. Weaker than Nibiru was its attracting net, its gravity. Its atmosphere was thinner than Nibiru's, and its clouds were within it swirling. Below, the earth to three regions was divided: snow white at the top and on the bottom, blue and brown in between. Deftly, Alalu spread the chariot's arresting wings around the earth's ball to circle. Again, let's keep in mind this stuff came out of Sumerian clay tablets. You think these people could have just made up perfect descriptions of the earth? It just boggles my mind to people that say that this is hogwash or whatever. I mean, that's 5,000-year-old text. How can you explain that? In the middle region, dry lands and watery oceans he could discern. The beam that penetrates downward he directed, Earth's innards to detect. I have attained it, he ecstatically shouted. So right there he tells you he had a beam that he could shoot down to Earth and determine how much gold was there. That's high technology. I have attained it, ecstatically he shouted. Gold, much gold. The beam has indicated it was beneath the dark-hued region. In the waters it was, too. With pounding heart, Alalu's a decision was contemplating. Shall he, on the dry land, his chariot bring down, perchance to crash and die? Perchance to crash and die. So, will he land on land, or shall he land on the water and risk sinking? Which way shall he survive? Will he the treasured gold discover? In the eagle's seat, Alalu was not stirring. To fate's hands, the chariot he entrusted. Fully caught in Earth's attracting net, the chariot was moving faster. Its spread wings became aglow. Its spread wings became aglow. Was this motherfucker landing in a Klingon bird of prey or something? Jesus Christ. Is that where the fuck they got that at, too? Wouldn't surprise me. Von Braun's Nazis were in on the science advisory board on the original Star Trek series. Fact. It spread its wings. Its spread wings became aglow. He's landing in a bird ship, a fucking Klingon bird of prey. Good Jesus Christ, the Anunnaki are Klingons. Great. No wonder they're dumbasses. Klingons are fucking dumb. Earth's atmosphere was like an oven. Well, yeah, you come in through the atmosphere, you start heating up, motherfucker. Guess you weren't smart enough to know that in advance, were you? I guess you didn't have a nifty little laser beam you could shoot down here to figure that out, now did you? Then the chariot shook, emitting a mortifying thunder. With abruptness, the chariot crashed, and with a suddenness altogether stopping. Senseless from the shaking and stunned by the crash, Alalu wasn't moving. Then he opened his eyes and knew he was among the living. At the planet of gold, he victoriously arrived. Now, this is the account of the earth and its gold. It is an account of the beginning and how the celestial gods were created. In the beginning, when in the above, the gods in the heavens had not been called into being. And in the below, Ki, the firm ground, had not yet been named. Alone in the void, there existed Apsu, the primordial begetter. In the heights of the above, the celestial gods had not yet been created. So, see, that's exactly. Celestial gods, the ones that were the hierarchy that was the bloodlines on Nibiru that we talked about earlier, that had that genealogical record. Those are the ones that became the gods. Above and below, the gods had not yet been formed. Destinies were not yet decreed. No reed had yet been formed. No marshland had appeared. Alone did Apsu reign in the void. Then by his winds the primordial waters were mingled. A divine and artful spell Apsu upon the waters cast. On the void's deep he poured a sound sleep. Tiamat, the mother of all, as a spouse for himself, he fashioned. A celestial mother, a watery beauty he was indeed. A watery beauty she was indeed. Now, Tiamat is said to be the mother of all, which is supposed to be this other planet that was once in our solar system that was a water planet that looked like a second sun from Earth because of the way the sun reflected off the water on the planet. Beside him, Apsu, little Mumu, then brought forth, as his messenger he him appointed, a gift for Tiamat to present. A gift resplendent to his spouse Apsu granted, a shining metal, the everlasting gold for her alone to possess. Then it was that the two, their waters mingled, their waters mingled, yeah. You know what it says when their waters mingled, right? And like Jesus turning the water into wine. And how Jesus turned the water into wine, he shot a fat load right in some girl's mouth. Divine children, yeah, really. That's what the water was. The magic water he told them to drink for. Yeah, man, it was semen. A bunch of semen worshipers. Male and female were the celestials created, Lamu and Lahamu by the names they were called. In the below did Apsu and Tiamat make them an abode. Before then they had grown in age and in stature, and the waters above Anshar and Kishar were formed. Surpassing their brothers in size they were, as a celestial couple, the two were fashioned. So hear what they're saying here. They're talking about forming these celestial. They're talking about. He's talking about forming moons and forming things like of that nature and planets. In order for life to be able to flourish on Earth, because if we didn't have a moon, we wouldn't, we wouldn't have any sort of tides or any ability for life to be created. A son, On, in the distant heavens was their heir. Then Antu to be his spouse, and as On's equal was brought forth, as a boundary of the upper waters, their abode was made. Thus were three heavenly couples, below and above, in the depths created by names that were called the family of Apsu with Mumu and Tiamat they formed. At that time, Nibiru had not yet been seen. The earth was not yet called into being. Mingled were the heavenly waters by a hammered bracelet. They were not yet separated. At that time, circuits were not yet fully fashioned. Oh, so that even, okay, well, that's interesting. That tells you right there. They're talking about forming planetary systems. I've talked about this and speculated about this for a long time. That I believe that at some point during one of these cataclysms, the earth was re-terraformed. I think that's what these guys have been doing. They've been going around terraforming planets forever. And that's kind of what it's talking about here. I mean, that is what it's talking about here. I mean, it says at that time the circuits were not yet fully fashioned. Well, the circuits, we know, they're referring to orbits. So that's an admission that they had the technology to be able to create orbits for particular planets. I mean, that's insane. Their celestial kinfolk banded together. Erratic were their ways. Their ways to Apsu were very loathsome. Tiamat, getting no rest, was aggravated and raged. A throng to march by her side she formed. A growing, raging host against the sons of Apsu she brought forth. With 11 of this kind she brought forth. She made the firstborn Kingu, chief among them. When the celestial gods of this herd did hear, for counsel they rallied. Kingu she has elevated to rank as on command to him she gave. A tablet of destiny to his chest she has attached, his own orbit to acquire. To battle against the gods of her offspring, Kingu she instructed, who will stand up to Tiamat, the gods asked each other. Now this is crazy, because this is turning into this like sort of mythological story of these planets, you know, in our solar system battling each other. That's just bizarre. So who shall stand up to Tiamat? So let me guess. Somebody's going to defeat Tiamat. And then when they defeat Tiamat, that's what's going to cause the asteroid belt to form. It's going to cause all the water to rush to Earth. And then that's what they're going to refer to in the book of Genesis as the waters above the firmament, right? Let me guess. Watch, whatever happens, Tiamat's going to be defeated. And that's what that's symbolic of. None in their orbit stepped forward. None a weapon for battle would bear. At that time, in the heart of the deep, a god was engendered. In a chamber of fates, a place of destinies, he was born. By an artful creator was he fashioned. The son of his own son he was. From the deep where he was engendered, the god from his family in a rushing departed. A gift to his creator, the seed of life, he carried with him. To the void he set his course. A new destiny he was seeking. The first to glimpse the wandering celestial was the ever-watchful Antu. Alluring with his figure a radiance he was beaming. Lordly was his gait. G-A-I-T, gait. Exceedingly great was his course. Of all the gods he was the loftiest. Surpassing their orbit he was. The first to glimpse him was Antu. Her breast by child never sucked. Her breast by child never sucked. I bet there's an anagram in there, Alice. Come be my son, she called to him. Let me your mother become. She cast her net and made him welcome, and made his course for the purpose suited. Oh, whoa, nice orbit, pulling in something in the orbit there. Her words filled the newcomer's heart with pride. The one who would nurse him made him haughty. His head to double size grew larger. 4 members at his side he sprouted, and his lips, he moved his lips in acceptance. A godly fire from them blazed forth. See, this is talking about, you know, probably Jupiter forming. Toward Antu his course he turned, his face to An soon to show. When An or On saw him, my son, with exultation he shouted. To leadership you shall be consigned. A host by your side will be your servants. Let Nibiru be your name, as crossing forever known. He bowed to Nibiru, turning his face at Nibiru's passage. He spread his net for Nibiru. 4 servants he brought forth. So this is saying that the gods themselves are the planets, and the planets themselves are the gods. As in, they are conscious, and in each of the planets are actually living entities that are conscious. That would have unbelievable implications for our planet and all planets, wouldn't it? But that's what they're saying here. His host by his side to be the south wind, the north wind, the fast wind, and the west wind. With joyful heart on to Anshar, his forebearer, the arrival of Nibiru announced. Anshar, upon hearing this, Gaga, who was by his side as an emissary, sent forth words of wisdom to On to deliver to task Nibiru to assign. He charged Gaga, which I believe is Venus, to give voice to what was in his heart. To On thus say, Tiamat, she who bore us now detests us. She has set up a warring host. She is furious with rage. Against the gods, her children, 11 warriors, march by her side. Kingu, among them, she elevated. A destiny to his chest she attached without right. No god among us against her venom can stand up. Her host in all of us has established fear. Let Nibiru become our avenger. Let him vanquish Tiamat. Let him save our lives. For him to decree a fate, let him go forth and face our mighty foe. To On, Gaga departed. He bowed before him. The words of Anshar, he repeated. On to Nibiru's forebearers, words repeated. Gaga's message to him, he revealed. To the words, Nibiru with wonder listened. Of the mother who would her children devour with fascination, he heard. His heart, without saying, to set out against Tiamat, he had already prompted. He opened his mouth to On, and Gaga said, if indeed I am to vanquish Tiamat, to save your lives, then convene the gods to assembly and proclaim my destiny to be supreme. Let all the gods agree in council to make me the leader and bow to my command. When Lamu and Lahamu heard this, they cried out with anguish. Strange was the demand, its meaning cannot be fathomed. Thus they said, the gods who decree the fates with each other consulted. To make Nibiru their avenger, they all agreed. To him an exalted fate decreed. From this day on, unchallengeable shall be your commandments. To him they said, no one among us gods shall transgress your bounds. And we're about to pick up, it's about to get into the celestial battle. So I'm going to read this little bit and stop before it gets to the celestial battle. Go, Nibiru, be our avenger. They fashioned for him a princely circuit towards Tiamat, a orbit. They gave Nibiru blessings. They gave Nibiru awesome weapons. Anshar, 3 more winds of Nibiru brought forth, the evil wind, the whirlwind, and the matchless wind. Kishar, with a blazing flame, filled his body, a net to enfold Tiamat there within. Thus, ready for battle, Nibiru toward Tiamat directly set his course. So this is talking about this, the battle of the gods and the gods being planets and what led to that. So we know, as we already know, that Tiamat is going to be destroyed. That becomes the asteroid belt. The water comes rushing down to Earth, covering much of the land on Earth with water. It was already covered with a great deal of water, but that's where the rest of it came in. And that would lead us to the next timeline of them starting to use genetic manipulation and start to use mankind as a slave race. This is fascinating stuff. It's one thing to, already have an idea of this stuff being there, but man, oh man, it's totally different when you really start to look at it in this way. And I'm glad we're reading this. And I'm glad we're starting to get some information on some of these, anagrams and stuff too. Wild stuff there. Now, this is the account of the celestial battle. We had the lead up to that last night. So tonight we're going to actually have the battle and how the earth came to be and of Nibiru's destiny. The Lord went forth, his fated course he followed. Toward the raging Tiamat, he set his face, a spell with his lips he uttered. So this is interesting that these people, they seem to be, these gods are using spells and they're using magic. And Tiamat, of course, we know this is the battle of the planets, the account of the celestial battle, meaning the battle of the planets. And Enki talks about these planets being gods, which is funny. Yeah, somebody was talking about that email we got from some crack nut a few months ago saying, all the planets are Satan. Oh, my God.
Suck Satan's cock, bitch.
Oh, my goodness. And so again, this is bear in mind when we're talking about here in this segment that this is supposedly a planetary battle between gods, the planets themselves being gods and battling. And of course, we know what the outcome that's going to be: the destruction of Tiamat, which was allegedly this water planet that, when viewed from Earth, made it appear from Earth that there were two suns, because it was a water planet, and the sun shining on it made it reflect, so it looked like a second sun. And supposedly it was blown up. The pieces of it became the asteroid belt, and all the water came rushing down to Earth, causing the Great Deluge. And so this is essentially what this is going to be talking about right here. Toward the raging Tiamat, he had set his face, a spell with his lips he uttered. As a cloak for protection, he, the pulsar, and the emitter put on. Pulsar and emitter, so that's like, this sounds like high technology, doesn't it? I mean, again, you have to understand that this is talking about very, very advanced technology, advanced beyond what we even have right now in 2011, way beyond that. With a fearsome radiance, his head was crowned. On his right, he posted the smiter. On his left, the repeller he placed. These, some sort of laser weapons, it sounds like. This is just insane. The seven winds, his host of helpers, like a storm he sent forth. Toward the raging Tiamat he was rushing, clamoring for battle. The gods thronged about him, then from his path they departed. To scan Tiamat and her helpers alone he was advancing. The scheme of Kingu, her host commander, to conceive. When he saw vigilant Kingu, his vision became blurred. As he gazed upon in the direction of the monsters, he was distracted, and he got off course, and he was confused. Tiamat's band tightly encircled her. With terror they trembled. Tiamat gave a shudder to her roots, and a mighty roar she emitted. On Nibiru, she cast a spell and engulfed him with her charms. The issue between them was joined. The battle was unavoided. Face to face they came, Tiamat and Nibiru against each other. They were advancing. They approached for battle, and they pressed on for single combat, meaning one-on-one, man-on-man. The Lord spread his net to encompass her. He cast it. With fury, Tiamat cried out like one possessed. She lost her senses. The evil wind which had been behind him, Nibiru drove forward. In her face, he let it loose. I'm not trying to be sexually dirty or be vulgar here, but you know what that kind of thing, that sounds like, right? He drove forward and let it loose in her face. I don't think it's very hard to figure that out. He shot a load. I don't know what else to say. She opened her mouth, the evil wind to swallow, but could not close her lips. Oh, I'm sorry. The evil wind charged her belly into her innards. It made its way. Yeah. This is totally what this is meaning. Okay. Wow. So this is the ejaculation of the gods into the mouths of the god. This is dirty, man. This is triple X. The FCC would have a major problem with this if this was on terrestrial radio. Nibiru drew forward.
Nibiru drove forward. In her face, he let it loose. She opened her mouth, the evil wind to swallow, but could not close her lips. The evil wind charged her belly. Into her innards it made its way. Her innards were howling. Her body was distended. Her mouth was wide open. Through the opening, Nibiru shot a brilliant arrow, a lightning most divine. It pierced her innards. Her belly it tore apart. It tore to her womb, and it split apart her heart. Oh, this is good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Satan likes to come in every now and again. Having thus subdued her, her life breath he extinguished. The lifeless body surveyed, like a slaughtered carcass Tiamat now was. Beside their lifeless mistress, her 11 helpers trembled with terror. In Nibiru's net they were captured, unable to flee. Kingu, who by Tiamat was made the host chief, was among them. The Lord put him into fetters. To his lifeless mistress he bound him. He wrestled from Kingu the tablets of destinies unright. Well, that would mean that, he made Tiamat be in orbit. It didn't get destroyed. That's all. That's kind of odd. Stamped it with his own seal and fastened the destiny to his own chest. The others of Tiamat's band, as captives he bound in his orbit, he ensnared them. So he's making them his planets by ensnaring them in his orbit. He trampled them underfoot and cut them up into pieces. He bound them all to his orbit. To turn around them, he made and to rotate backwards in course. So he made them have a reverse orbit. From the battle of Nibiru, then departed. To the gods who had appointed the victory to announce, he made a orbit around Apsu. To Kishar and Anshar, he journeyed ahead. Gaga came out to greet him as a herald to the others he journeyed. Beyond An and Antu, Nibiru, to the abode in the deep he proceeded. The fate of lifeless Tiamat and of Kingu he then considered. To Tiamat, whom he had subdued, the Lord Nibiru then returned. He made his way to her, paused to view her lifeless body, and to artfully divide the monster in his heart that was planning something. Then, as a muscle into two parts, he split her. Her chest from her lower parts he separated. Her inner channels he cut apart. Her golden veins he beheld with wonder. Trotting upon her hinder part, the Lord, her uppermost part completely severed. The north wind, his helper from his side, he summoned. To thrust away the severed head, the wind he commanded to the void, in the void to place it. Nibiru wind upon Tiamat then hovered, sweeping upon her gushing waters. Nibiru shot a lightning. To north wind he gave a signal. In a brilliance was Tiamat's upper part to a region unknown carried. With her then bound Kingu was also exiled. Of the severed part a companion to be, the hinder part fate Nibiru then considered. As an everlasting trophy of the battle he wished it to be, a constant reminder in the heavens, the place of the battle to enshrine. With his mace, the hinder part, he smashed to bits and pieces, then strung them together as a band to form a hammered bracelet. So was that Saturn? Locking them together as a watchman. No, that's the asteroid belt. The hammered bracelet is the asteroid belt. Locking them together as a watchman, he stationed them, a firmament to divide the waters from the waters. Yeah, waters above the firmament. That's what they're talking about in the book of Genesis. The destruction of Tiamat. The upper waters above the firmament from the waters below it, he separated. Artful works Nibiru thus fashioned. The Lord then crossed the heavens to survey the regions. From Apsu's quarter to the abode of Gaga, he measured the dimensions. The edge of the deep Nibiru then examined towards his birthplace, he cast his gaze. He paused and hesitated then to the firmament, the place of the battle. Slowly he returned. Passing again to Apsu's region of the sun, missing his spouse that he thought about with remorse. He missed her because she was dead. He gazed upon Tiamat's wounded half. To her upper part he gave attention. The waters of life, her bounty from the wounds, were still pouring. Her golden veins, Apsu's rays were reflecting. The seed of life, his creator's legacy, Nibiru then remembered. When he trod on Tiamat, when he split her asunder, to her the seed he surely imparted. He addressed words to Apsu, to him saying, with your warming rays to the wounds give healing. Let the broken part new life be given, in your family as a daughter to be. Let the waters to one place be gathered. Let firm land appear. This is when they're transferring the water to earth, folks. That's what this is. By firm land, let her be called Ki. Henceforth, her name to be. And Ki, before it was named earth, was called Ki, K-I. Apsu to the words of Nibiru gave heed. Let the earth join my family. Ki, firm land of the below. Let earth her name be henceforth. By her turning, let there be day and night. In the days my healing rays to her I shall provide. Let Kingo be a creature of the night to shine at night. I shall appoint him. So Kingu became the moon. Earth's companion, the moon forever to be. Which is just odd considering, our moon seems to be an artificial construct. I mean, it seems, it orbits us in a geosynchronous pattern like a satellite, not like an orbit of a moon. That's what's very odd about it. Nibiru, the words of Apsu with satisfaction heard. He crossed the heavens and surveyed the regions. To the gods whom had elevated him, he granted permanent stations. Their circuits he destined that none shall transgress nor fall short of each other. He strengthened the heavenly locks, gates on both sides he established. An outermost abode he chose for himself beyond Gaga were its dimensions. The great circuit or the great orbit to be his destiny, he beseeched Apsu for him to decree. All of the gods spoke up from their stations. Let Nibiru's sovereignty be surpassing. Most radiant of the gods he is. Let him truly the son of the sun be. From his quarter, Apsu gave his blessing. Nibiru shall hold the crossing of heaven and earth. Crossing shall be his name. The gods shall cross over neither above nor below. He shall hold the central position. The shepherd of the gods he shall be. A shar, or a type of a way of measuring time. A shar shall be his orbit, that his destiny will forever be. Now, this is the account of how the olden times began, and of the era that in the annals of the golden era by the name it was known, and how from Nibiru to earth the missions went the missions to earth to obtain gold happened. The escape from Alalu from Nibiru was its beginning. With great understanding was Alalu endowed. Much knowledge he had learned. He learned much knowledge by his forefather Anshargal of the heavens and the orbits. Much knowledge was amassed. By Inshar was acknowledged, greatly augmented. Of that, Alalu made much learning with the sages he discoursed, savants, and commanders he consulted. Thus was the knowledge of the beginning ascertained that Alalu had learned. The gold in the hammered bracelet was the confirmation. The gold in the hammered bracelet of gold in Tiamat's upper half was the indication. At the planet of gold, Alalu victoriously arrived in a high chariot with thunder crashing. So, a loud spaceship comes crashing down. With a beam, he scanned the place, his whereabouts to discover. So, he there again, Alalu comes down in his ship, his UFO, scans a beam down, and then decides that where he's going to land. The same thing that he did before when he decided there was gold there. He shot a beam down. I mean, this is amazing stuff here. 5,000-year-old text talking about UFOs and shooting beams down. Crazy shit. High chariot on dry land descended. At the edge of extended marshes, it landed. He put on an eagle's helmet, and he put on a fish's suit. So he put on an eagle's helmet. That's funny. And a fish suit. So he put on something where he could swim under the water. The chariot's hatch he opened. At the hatch, he stopped to wonder. Dark-hued was the ground. Blue-white were the skies. No sound there. No one to bid him welcome. Alone on an alien planet he stood, perchance from Nibiru forever exiled. To the ground himself he lowered. On the dark-hued soil he stepped. There were hills in the distance. Nearby, much vegetation there was. Ahead of him there were marshes. Into the marsh he stepped. By the water's coolness he shuddered. Back to the dry ground he stepped. Alone on an alien planet he stood. With thoughts he was possessed of his wife and his offspring, and with longing he remembered them. Was he forever exiled from Nibiru? Of that, again and again, he often wondered. To the chariot or the spaceship, the UFO, he soon returned with food and drink to be sustained. Then deep sleep overcame him, a very powerful slumber. How long he slept, he could not remember. What awakened him, he could not tell. A brightness there was outside, a brilliance on Nibiru unseen, the sun. A pole from the chariot he extended. With a tester it was equipped. It breathed the planet's air. Compatibility it indicated. The chariot's hatch he opened. At the open hatch he took a breath. Another breath, then another. The air of Ki indeed was completely compatible with Nibiru's. Alalu clapped his hands, a song of joy he was singing. Without an eagle's helmet, without a fish's suit, to the ground himself he lowered. The brightness outside was blinding. The rays of the sun were overpowering. Into the chariot he returned, a mask for the eyes he donned. He went and got his ass some sunglasses. Good call. Glad you had those with you. Smart thinking. Always carry sunglasses when you go to an alien planet. Okay? Put that on the fucking board. Always carry fucking sunglasses when you go to an alien planet. Smart move. I'm glad we had some sensible people in our ancestry here. He picked up a weapon that he carried with him, and he picked up a handy sampler. What's a handy sampler? Got a little bit of everything in there. Oh, I got a gun. I got me a laser beam. I got me a tractor beam. I got all kinds of stuff in here, man. To the ground he himself lowered. On the dark-hued soil he stepped. He made his way towards the marshes. Dark green were the waters. By the marsh's edge there were pebbles. Alalu picked up a pebble and thrust it into the marsh. In the marsh, a moving his eyes glimpsed. The waters were filled with fishes. Into the marsh, the sampler he lowered and looked at the murky waters. For drinking the water, it was not fit. Alalu was greatly disappointed. He turned away from the marshes in the direction of the hills he went. He made his way through the vegetation. Bushes gave way to trees. This place was like an orchard. The trees with fruits were laden with fruits. By their sweet smell, they enticed him, and Alalu picked a fruit and put it in his mouth. It was smelled very sweet and tasted very sweet, and he was greatly delighted. Away from the sun's rays, Alalu was walking toward the hills. He set his direction. Among the trees, a wetness under his feet, he sensed, a sign of close-by waters. In the direction of the wetness, he set his course. In the midst of the forest, there was a pond, a pool of silent waters. Into the pond, the sampler he lowered. For drinking, the water was good. Alalu laughed, and unstopping laughter seized him. The air was good. The water was fit for drinking. There was fruit. There were fishes. What more did he need, right? Well, let me go find something I can bang, and we'll be all set. You know, I got food. I got fucking water. I can breathe air. Now I need something to put my dick in. So, you know, that's pretty much where we're going next. Got to be. He's a man, right? He's got his food. He's got his shelter. What's he need next? He needs vagina. And boom, here you go. That's how the human race got here. The end. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Just kidding. Boom, that brings us up to date. That's how we got here. Some dude, you know, with a big ego crashed on an alien planet, found some food, found some shelter, found breathable air, found something to fuck, and bam. This is how life was created. I don't know, we'll just walk into a classroom and teach that, you know. All right, kids, here we go. We're going to learn about creation and evolution today. Here's how it happened. 5,000 years ago, an alien, drunk-ass, horny, egotistical alien crashed on Earth. He missed his wife and his kids. Mostly he missed his wife because he couldn't get any poontang. And, you know, he found some fucking fruits and berries and some water and some breathable air. I was like, this is badass. Now I got to get my dick wet. And that about brings us up to date, kids. We'll have a quiz on this on Friday. Be sure and tell your parents what we learned today, okay? You guys be safe. Thanks. So, yeah, this guy's like, you know, living it up. Now I gotta go. I just need to find something to have sex with. The daughters of man That's what he's going to have sex with. Yes. With eagerness, Alalu bent down. Together, he cupped his hands and put the water in his mouth. It had a different taste from the water of Nibiru. Once more, he drank, and then with fright, he jumped. A hissing sound he could hear. A slithering body by the poolside. That was a fucking snake, dude. We got snakes down here on this planet. All that technology and laser beams and, you know, shooting beams down to see where the gold is and shooting beams down to see where the optimum landing spot is. All that fucking technology couldn't save you from a fucking water snake. Now, could it? I mean, you know, that really, it's funny because that's what, you know, that sort of seems like what the elite do, what the New World Order does. It's that kind of shit, you know? You guys can pull off all these operations, but you had a fucking brain between you. It's just, didn't count on that fucking snake, did you, Bubba? He seized the weapon that he carried and blasted it away. Oh, you pussy. Shot the snake with a fucking laser beam. The moving stopped. The hissing was ended. To examine the danger, Alalu stepped forward. The slithered body lay still. Dead was the creature, a sight most strange, like a rope its long body was, without hands or feet. Fierce eyes were in its small head. Out of its mouth, a long tongue was sticking. Yeah, fucking snake, dude. A sight on Nibiru never beheld it was, a creature of another world. Was it the orchid's guardian? Alalu by himself pondered. Was it the water's master himself, he asked. In his carried flask, he collected some water and made his way back to his flying saucer. The sweet fruits he also picked and took them back to the flying saucer as well. The brightness of the sun's rays were greatly diminished. Darkness it was. So he crashed out in the UFO. The shortness of the day, Alalu pondered. Its shortness amazed him. So not used to our orbit, so the days are much shorter. So you age a lot quicker. From the direction of the marshes, a cool lightness on the horizon was rising. A white-hued ball in the heavens was rising. Kingu, the Earth's companion, he now beheld. What in the accounts of the beginning his eyes, the truth could now see? The planets and their orbits, the hammered bracelet, Ki, the Earth, Kingu, its moon, were all created, all by names that were called. In his heart, Alalu knew one more truth that needed beholding. The gold, the means of their salvation, needed to be found. If truth be in the beginning tales, if by the waters the golden veins of Tiamat were washed, in the waters of Ki, its cut off half, gold must be found. So essentially now I understand what they were saying. Earth, Ki, was actually a part of Tiamat that was cut off from. Very interesting. That's not really what you hear oftentimes in the research community and stuff. Very, very interesting stuff. With hands unsteady, Alalu, the tester, dismantled the chariot's pole. With trembling hands, he donned the fish suit. The fast arriving daylight eagerly awaited him. He left the chariot, the UFO, at daybreak and quickly stepped into the marshes. Into the deeper waters he waded. Into the tester, into the waters he inserted. Its illuminated face he eagerly watched. In his chest, his heart was pounding. I mean, it's funny. Its illuminated face, it literally is describing this, device having a screen on it. You're going to sit here and tell me some guy 5,000 years ago in Samaria just made that up? I mean, if you don't believe anything else, I mean, the idea that he's, looking at an illuminated face of this tester, wondering what it's going to tell him. I mean, that's a screen. How did that guy know to describe a fucking LCD screen or a display screen 5,000 years ago? I mean, that question alone, out of all of this, should have everybody in the scientific community wondering what's going on here. Its illuminated face he eagerly watched. In his chest, his heart was pounding. The water's contents was indicated by the tester, by symbols and numbers, its findings disclosed. So right there, he's looking at a screen. Then Alalu's heartbeat stopped. There is gold in the waters. the tester was telling him. Unsteady on his legs, Alalu stepped forward deeper into the marsh as he made his way. Again, the tester into the waters he inserted, and again, the tester announced that he had found gold. A cry of triumph from Alalu's throat emanated. Nibiru's fate in his hands was now in his hands. He made his way back to the UFO. He took off the fish suit and occupied the commander's seat. The tablets of destinies that knows all orbits he enlivened to Nibiru's orbit to find the direction. The speaker of words he stirred up toward Nibiru the words to carry. Then to Nibiru words he uttered. Thus he was saying, the words of the great Alalu to Anu on Nibiru are directed. On another world am I. The gold of salvation I have found. The fate of Nibiru is in my hands. To my conditions you must give heed. So right there, he's basically blackmailing them. He's saying, you know, I found it. I found the gold. I found what can save our planet. How badly do you want it? Because if you want me to come back and save our planet, then you're going to have to, you know, when I come back and bring it, I'm king and I get to be in charge. And, you know, because, hey, I'm the one doing the hard work, all the work, right? So that's the end of the second tablet of the Lost Book of Enki. And tomorrow on the show, we'll get into the third tablet. Well, the synopsis of the third tablet, which is coming up next. And then obviously the third tablet after that. So I guess next we're going to be getting into him finding, you know, the daughters of man and getting his groove on and doing a little, you know, genetic crossbreeding to create slaves to hunt, to mine the gold. Fascinating stuff here. Lost Book of Enki. Again, you know, I don't always read everything that I read, and always stuff I always agree with. I'm not reading this because I endorse it or I agree with it. I'm just reading it because it's highly interesting. And we are, I think, by reading it like this and sort of dissecting it and going through it day by day and page by page, I think it gives us all, myself included, you, more of an opportunity for us to decide for ourselves what's bullshit and what's not, instead of somebody just telling us, oh, you know, Zachariah Sitchin, he's, you know, CIA. And yeah, he was, blah, blah, whatever. But still, let's decide that for ourselves. Let's go through this. Let's see if we can get anything out of it. We'll call what's bullshit, and we'll take the rest and go about our own merry way. We don't have to fucking buy into anything or support, you know, this clown or his ideology, what he stood for, or anything else. But the fact of the matter is, the reason why we've been told not to look at this is because this is indeed what mankind is supposed to know. So we don't repeat those same vicious cycles. And with the knowledge of this stuff, mankind would know that this happened in the past and this is where we're heading. And we would pull ourselves out of that before we had a chance. That's why they will not let us have this info. And that, again, is why the whole, you know, operation of the phony controlled patriot movement, truth movement was set up. Because they knew when people started looking forward towards conspiratorial topics, they'd eventually get into this stuff. But that's why you hear Alex Jones, oh, folks, that stuff's a distraction. Talk about the bankers, folks. Just quacking it up, running block, being the cock block for the priest class. Keep on doing it, Bubba. You know, people are awake now. A lot more people have figured this out. And that, to me, like I talked about last night, that's the fight. You know, that's what we got to do. We got to continue to try to get this information out to people and let them know that what these elite and these priest class bozos are hiding at the very top is they're hiding our birthright. They're hiding our information. They're you know, giving us these phony things like, you know, the phony state of Israel and, you know, telling us that these people over here are the Semites when it's not actually them, and they're going and killing the other people that are actually the bloodline descendants of these ancient civilizations. I mean, it's just insane. But it's all happening because of our sheer lack of knowledge of things that we've never been allowed to know. If we had a history of what had happened on other planets where possibly our forebears came from, and that they had gone down the same route we did, we might see that and go, oh man, they fucked up. We don't want to go that route. We got to change things. If we were to do that, there'd be no more New World Order. There'd be no more power structure. So you see, this is why this is important. That's why I implore you to look at this information and, as usual, decide about it for yourself. That's Global Reality Show at gmail.com. We're going to continue reading here from from the Lost Book of Enki. Trying to find where I left off. I just had it. How could this fucking page change when I haven't even been on the page? I had it set right to where we were at. Here it is. All right, now I got to back to where I just scrolled up a little bit. Now this is the account of the judging of Alalu and of the happenings thereafter on earth and on Lamu. In his reed hut, Anu was hurting. In the reed hut, to him, Enki applied healing. In his reed hut, Alalu was sitting. Spittle he spat from his mouth. So he's sitting there like, spitting shit everywhere. In his innards, the malehood of Anu was like a burden. Ugh, that sounds gross. In his innards, the malehood of Anu was like a burden. He had the malehood of Anu inside of him. With Anu's semen were his innards impregnated, like a female in travail, his belly grew. A dude got impregnated, got pregnant like Arnold Schwarzenegger from Anu, like the god of the Anunnakis. Oh, God, I'm sorry, dude. I feel for you. I mean, maybe you should, keep the back door closed more often. I don't know. Ugh. This is some sick stuff in here. On the third day, Anu's pain subsided. His pride was greatly hurting. To Nibiru, I wish to return. Yeah, get me out of here with these ass fuckers, please. To his two sons did Anu say, beforehand upon Alalu, there must be a judgment, a sentence, the crime befitting must be imposed. By the laws of Nibiru, 7 judges were required, the highest rank of them to preside. In the square of Eridu, the heroes were assembled. The trial of Alalu they were observing. For the 7 who judged, 7 seats were provided. And they provided the tallest seat of all to Anu. Yeah, because he's a fucking giant, right? To his right was seated Enki. On his left, on the left of Anu, was seated Enlil. On Enki's right, Anzu and Nungal were seated. Abgal and Alagar to the left of Enlil sat. Before these 7 who judge Alalu was brought, his hands and feet were united. Enlil was first to speak. In fairness, a wrestling match was held. Alalu, the kingship to Anu, was forfeited. What say you, Alalu? Enki asked him. In fairness, the wrestling match was held. The kingship I forfeited, Alalu said. Having been vanished, Alalu, an abominable crime performed. He bit the malehood, the cock of Anu, and swallowed it. I'm not making this up. It literally says this. So he did a Mike Tyson on him, only he didn't go for the ear. He went right to the cack and bit the fucker off and swallowed it. You heard that about, like, what was it? The Isis, Osiris, Horus thing, Like Set cut off the penis of Horus or something like that and fed it to this fish. I mean, what was up with these guys? I'll make sure that fucker never comes back. Cut his cock off. Feed it to a fish. Jesus. Thus, Enlil made an accusation of the crime. Death is the punishment, Enlil said. What do you say, Alalu? Enki, his father by marriage, asked. There was silence. Alalu did not answer the question. We all witnessed the crime. Alagar was saying judgment must be in accordance. If words you wish to utter, speak before the judging, Enki to Alalu said. In the silence, Alalu slowly began to speak. On Nibiru, I was king. By right of succession, I was reigning. Anu was my cupbearer. The princes he aroused. So he turned on the males, the princes. To a wrestling match, he challenged me. For 9 counted orbits, I was king on Nibiru. To my seed, kingship belonged. On my throne sat Anu himself. To escape death, I made a dangerous journey to the distant earth. For the salvation of Nibiru, I, Alalu, discovered the alien planet. Return to Nibiru I was promised, in fairness the throne to regain. Then to earth came Ea, the one by compromise, the next to reign Nibiru he was designated. Then came Enlil, the secession from Anu to himself he claimed. Then Anu came, and he tricked Ea a lot, and Enki, the lord of the earth, he was proclaimed. Of earth, not Nibiru, to be the master. Saying, this is your domain. That's why Ea, earth, is called earth. It's the realm of Ea. That's what it means. Nobody ever thinks of where that term comes from or why we call the earth, earth. It's the realm of Ea. The first two letters of earth are Ea. Ea. Hello? If that's not enough to bitch slap you out of your comatose state, I don't know what is. And just people go through their everyday lives never even knowing that fact or even, questioning it. But it's a fact. Of earth, not Nibiru, to be the master. Then to Enlil, the command of earth was granted. Enki was delegated to the distant Abzu. My heart of all that was aching, my chest from shame and anger was bursting. Then Anu placed his foot upon my chest and it began to tread upon my aching heart. In the silence, Anu spoke up. By royal seed and law, by fair wrestling, did I gain the throne. My malehood you bit off and swallowed. My offspring line to discontinue. Enlil spoke up. To the crime the accused admitted, let the judgment come. Let the punishment be death. Death, said Alagar. Death, said Abgal. Death, said Nungal. Death to Alalu by itself will be coming. What he had swallowed in his innards, death will bring. Enki said, let Alalu rest of his days on earth be imprisoned. Anzu was saying that their words Anu was contemplated. Anger and pity engulfed both of them. To die in exile, let this be his judgment, Anu was saying. So in other words, banish him to earth. And that would tie into the whole thing we were talking about earlier. That's they banished Alalu to earth and then created the etherical barrier the Van radiation belts around him here. At least that's how I understand it. Very interesting. We'll see if this indeed tells us that. That's what I understand, though. In amazement, the judges at each other glanced. What Anu was saying that they wondered. Neither on earth nor on Nibiru shall the exiling be, Anu was saying. On the way there is the Lamu planet. With waters and an atmosphere it is endowed. Enki, as Ea, thereon made a pause. Of it as a way station, I have been thinking. That's supposedly supposed to be Mars, I believe. The way station was Mars, from what I understand. Its net force is less than that of Earth, forceful, an advantage and wisdom to be considered. In the celestial chariot, Alalu shall be taken. On my departing from Earth, with me he shall make the journey. Around the planet Lamu we shall make the orbit. To Alalu a sky chamber we shall provide. To the planet Lamu in it he will be descended. Alone on a strange planet in exile he shall be. His days to his last himself shall count. Now, this, what did he refer to it as? The sky chamber? Could that possibly be what, this guy found on Mars? Could that be what the face on Mars is? Highly interesting that, they would banish him there, the way station. We know that they referred to the Mars as the way station. Very interesting that we have Cydonia on Mars, which is what ancient Mesopotamia, what is now Iraq, used to be called. Iraq, Cydonia, Mesopotamia. It's located on the 33rd degree parallel on Earth. Cydonia on Mars is also located on the 33rd degree parallel, and that's where these pyramids on Mars are also located. It's very likely that that's what that was. Thus did Anu utter the words of judgment. in solemnity the words were intended. By unanimity, it was a unanimous decision, let's just say that, to impose this judgment upon Alalu. In the presence of the heroes, it was announced, let Nungal be my pilot to Nibiru, there from chariots bearing heroes again to earth to pilot. Let Anzu join for this journey, so that he can take charge of the descent to Lamu. Oh, Lamu will be in charge of the descent down to the planet. So did Anu commandments utter. On the morning they departed, they were ready. All who departed by boats to the chariot were ferried. A place for landings on firm soil you must prepare, Anu to Enlil was saving. How Lamu as a way station to utilize the plans to utilize this you should be making. There were farewells, both joy and sorrow. Limping, Anu was limping when he embarked on his chariot. He had his hands, and with his hands he tied Alalu, and then drug him into the chariot, the spacecraft. Then to the heavens the chariot soared up, and the royal visit had ended. They made an orbit around the moon, and Anu was enchanted by the sight of the moon. Toward the red-hued Lamu, which is, again, Mars. They say here it's red-hued. There you go. And they circled around it twice. Lower towards the strange planet they came, mountains, sky high, and tears in the surface, tears in the surface they noticed. Where Ea's chariot had once landed, they saw that it was located by a lakeside. Slowed by Lamu net power in the chariot, the sky chamber, they readied. Anzu, its pilot, then unexpected words said to Anu, with Alalu to the firm soil of Lamu I shall descend. With the sky chamber to the chariot to return, I wish not. So he's saying he wants to stay down there with him. With Alalu on the strange planet I shall stay. Until he dies, I shall protect him. When he dies of his innards poison, as befits a king, him I shall bury. As for me, I shall have made my name. Anzu, they will say, against all odds, to a king in exile, a companion he was. He saw things by others unseen. On a strange planet, he faced unknown things. Anzu, they will to the end of time shall say, has fallen like a hero. There were tears in the eyes of Alalu. There was amazement in the heart of Anu. Your wish shall be honored. To Anzu, Anu said, hereby let a promise by me to you be made. By my raised hand to you I this swear. On the next journey a chariot by Lamu shall circuit and orbit. Its skyship to you shall descend. If alive it shall find you, the master of Lamu you shall be proclaimed. So he's making him the king of Mars here. When a way station on Lamu's shell has been established, its commander you shall be. Anzu bowed his head. So be it. To Anu he said. Into the sky chamber Alalu and Anzu were ushered. With eagles' helmets and fishes' suits they were provided. Meaning suits they could fly in space in and suits they could go underwater in. With food and tools they were supplied. From the circling chariot the skyship left and departed. Its descent was what they watched its descent from the ground. Then from view it disappeared, and the chariot to Nibiru continued. Oh, I lost my place. This thing just scrolls down on me sometimes. Here it is. For 9 years was Alu the king on Nibiru. For 8 years, Iridu he commanded. In the 9th Shar, or year, to die in exile on Lamu was his fate. Now, this is the account of the return of Anu to Nibiru. So this is a new segment we're starting here, a new part, the account of Anu's return to Nibiru. And how Alalu on Lamu was buried, how Enlil on earth the landing place built. On Nibiru, for Anu, there was a joyous welcome. Anu gave his account to the council and the princes of what had happened. Neither pity nor vengeance from them all he sought. To discuss the tasks ahead of them, he instructed them all. And he outlined a great vision that he had, he assembled a great vision to let the council know about. He wanted to establish way stations from Nibiru to Earth and have all of the sun's family in one kingdom. The first on Lamu to be fashioned, the moon, for the plans he also considered on the other planets or their circling host stations to set up. So he wanted to set up stations on moons on other planets as well. And have a constant caravan of ships just going back and forth between every planet. Sounds smart to me. We will bring the gold from Earth without any interruptions to Nibiru. Perhaps we will find gold elsewhere. So they're saying, oh, we're going to bring all the gold from Earth, and maybe we'll find it on some of these other planets where we have way stations set up as well. The counselors, the princes, the servants, all considered Anu's plans. The salvation of Nibiru they saw in the promise of his plans. Savants and commanders' knowledge of the celestial gods perfected. They added a new kind of rocket ship, so a new technology to their chariots and skyships. So their technology apparently has already evolved at this point of the telling of the story. Heroes were selected for the tasks. I'm guessing heroes. They keep saying heroes. I'm guessing those are like, people of extraordinary strength. And for the task, there was much to learn. The plans were beamed over, I guess, sent by laser fax machine, laser email to Enlil and Enki. And they were told to hurry their preparations on Earth. On Earth, there was much discussion of what had happened and what there is to be done. Enki, Alligar, to be of Eridu, the overseer, made his own steps to the Abzu he directed. Where to obtain gold from the Earth's bowels, he then determined. What heroes to the task are needed, he calculated. What tools will be required? An earth splitter with cleverness, Enki designed. An earth splitter, something that would open up the earth. There within the earth to make a gash and reach its innards by way of tunnels. Could this be where these ancient underground tunnels that have been found under the earth, found in places like Dallas when they first built the city sewer system here? They found tunnels that were older than there had been people here, laser etched tunnels under the city of Dallas. Found these little green creatures in there. Yeah. That which crunches and that which crushes was the name of the machine. Of other matters, Nibiru savants he had to contemplate. So of matters in health and well-being of heroes, he needed to listen. To the heroes, Earth's quick circuits were upsetting. Yeah, they were not happy about the quick orbit because, they're getting older faster. So they're trying to mine this gold, and they're getting older much quicker than they would on their planet, so they can't get the job done. And that's what led to the creation of mankind as a slave race. Earth's quick day and night cycles were causing dizziness to the heroes. The atmosphere, though good, was lacking in some things and too abundant in other things. Of the sameness of the food, the heroes were complaining. We eat the same thing all the time. Oh, he eats fucking chicken. Enlil, the commander, was afflicted from the heat of the sun on Earth. For coolness and shade, he was longing. While in the Abzu, Enki was making preparations. Enlil in his skyship was surveying the extent of Eden. Of the Eden, E-D-I-N. That's the place where they were setting up Eden. E-D-I-N. What later became what we know in biblical terms as Eden. See? Of mountains and rivers he took account. Of valleys and plains he measured. He wanted to establish in Eden a landing place for the rocket ships. So the rocket ships that landed Earth landed in a place called Eden. Give me a fucking break sandwich. God damn. Enlil, by the heat of the sun, was afflicted and was searching more for a coolness and a place of shade. To the snow-covered mountains of the Eden's north side, he took a liking. The tallest trees he ever saw grew there in a cedar forest. There above a mountain valley with power beams, he flattened the surface. Is that what the tops of the mountains in Brazil, you know, where the Nazca lines are at? Where the whole tops of the mountains are just sheared off as if by a laser? Is that what he did? Flattening the surface of this mountain valley? Very well could be. Great stones from the hillside the heroes quarried and cut to size. To uphold the platform with skyships, they carried and placed them there with satisfaction. Enlil was satisfied with the handiwork. A work beyond belief, indeed it was, a structure of everlasting. An abode for himself on the crest of a mountain was his desire. Of the tall trees in the cedar forest, long beams were prepared. Of them, the construction of an abode for himself he decreed. The abode of the north crest, he named it. On Nibiru, a new celestial chariot was soaring off for preparation. New kinds of rocket ships, sky ships, and that which Enki had designed was transporting people. A fresh group of 50 from Nibiru was taking. Chosen females were among them. By Ninmah, exalted lady, were they commanded. In succor and healing they were trained. Ninmah, exalted lady, a daughter of Anu she was, a half-sister, not a full sister of Enki and Enlil she was. She was greatly learned in the treating of ailments. She excelled in that. To the complaints from earth she gave much attention. A healing she prepared. The course of prior chariots on tablets of destinies were recorded. And Nungal did follow its pilots. Unharmed, it reached the celestial god Lamu. It circled the planet, slowly to its surface descended. A faint beaming group of heroes followed. Ninmah was going with them. They found Anzu beside a lake shore with signals beaming from his helmet. Anzu himself was without motion, prostrate. He lay dead. Ninmah touched his face. To his heart she gave attention. From her pouch she took out the pulsar. Upon Anzu's heart pulsing she directed. From her pouch she took out the emitter, its crystals, life-giving emissions on his body she directed. 60 times did Ninmah direct the pulsar. 60 times did the emitter. So this is some sort of crystal that puts out a frequency, and I guess after 60 pulses of the frequency, it brings an organic life form back to life. These guys have the technology to bring people back to life. Well, no wonder they don't want us to get our hands on this alien technology. There you go. I mean, because, boy, it would suck if we were able to just go over to flash a crystal in front of somebody's heart 60 times and make them come back to life, isn't it? That would just suck for this planet. Man. On the 60th time, Anzu opened his eyes. And he began to talk. Gently upon his face, Ninmah poured the water of life and wetted his lips with it. Gentle into his mouth, she placed the food of life. Then the miracle happened. Anzu rose from the dead. They inquired to him about Alalu. Anzu told them of Alalu's death. He led them to a great rock protruding heavenward from the plain. There he told them what happened. Alalu, soon after the landing, began to scream from unremitting pain. From his mouth, his innards he was spitting. In agony, he peered over the wall. He's puking his guts out, literally. Thus, Anzu was saying to them, he led them to a great rock, like a mountain from the plain, heavenward uprising. In the great rock, a cave I found, a Lalu's corpse therein I hid. Its entrance with stones I covered. So Anzu was saying to them, as they followed the rock and they removed the stones and entered the cave. Inside, they found what remained of Alalu. He who once on Nibiru was a king was a pile of bones in a cave now. The first time in our annals, a king not on Nibiru has died. Not on Nibiru was he buried. So, said Nimma, let him in peace for eternity rest. They then again covered the cave's entrance with stone. The image of Alalu upon the great rock mountain with beams they carved. So, somewhere on Mars, there are probably still evidence of that rock carving done with lasers. Now, some of the rock carvings we've seen on Earth appear to be done with lasers. Stuff we've seen in Egypt, stuff we've seen in South America, all over the place. Samir. So there again, whoever these people are, they had that technology. They showed him wearing an eagle's helmet. Oh, I see what they're saying. Now I get it. Okay. So on top of the great mountain, oh my God, this is on top of the face. The face on Mars is Alalu's face. That's why it's on the 33rd degree parallel in Cydonia, where it just happens to be where Enki set up the landing for Eden. Where was that? The 33rd degree parallel on Earth in Mesopotamia, formerly known as Cydonia, Iraq, who we've bombed and blown the shit out of and taken all their antiquities because they can't allow this info to get out to everybody. And he had a helmet on. And the guy on the face on Mars has what? A helmet. It's unbelievable. That's exactly what it was. It was a helmet. And they're saying right here that they laser etched into this rock on this mountain an image of Alalu wearing a helmet with his face uncovered. My goodness. Let the image of Alalu forever gaze up towards Nibiru, toward Earth, whose gold he discovered. That explains the face on Mars and why they've wanted to cover that up for years. There you go. So Ninmah, exalted lady, in the name of her father Anu, did declare, as for you, Anzu, to you, Anu, the king of his promise, he shall be keeping. 20 heroes with you here shall remain. The way station's building to begin. Rocket ships from Earth, the golden oars, shall here deliver. Celestial chariots from here, the gold to Nibiru, shall then transport. Hundreds of heroes shall make their abode on Lamu, on Mars. You, Anzu, shall be their commander. Thus did the great lady, in the name of her father Anu, to Anzu say, my life I owe to you, great lady. My gratitude to Anu shall not have any limits. From the planet Lamu, the chariot departed toward Earth and continued on its journey. So that's the end of, the fourth tablet. The next chapter is the synopsis of the fifth tablet. And we'll pick up on that next time on the broadcast. Man, oh man, oh man. Very, very interesting stuff there tonight. The whole thing about I didn't realize that the explanation for the face on Mars was in the Sumerian tablets. I never realized that. That's insane. Learn something new every day, or you should, right? Let's get into it now. Synopsis of the fifth tablet. Ninmah arrives on Earth with a group of female nurses. She delivers seeds to grow elixir-providing plants. What? Marijuana, psilocybin, peyote, hemp. Yeah, I mean, it's probably what it was. She brings in little news of their out of wedlock son, Ninurta. And the Abzu, Enki establishes an abode and mining sites. In the Eden, Enlil builds space and other facilities. He's building a spaceport. Nibirians on Earth, who on Earth are called the Anunnaki or the Anunnaki, number 600. So there were 600 originally brought down to Earth. I did not know that. 300 Igigi operate the facilities on Lamu or Mars. Exiled for date raping Sud, and Lil learns of the hidden weapons. Date raping Sud? Really? You really said date raping in the Sumerian text? Date rape, huh? Okay. Yeah. I mean, really said date rape in there? I think old Zechariah might have been hitting the cocaine when he wrote that. I don't know. Maybe he misinterpreted. Oh, yes, it says date rape. That's what it says right there. Date rape, don't you know? Sumerians were all into date rape. Yeah. It's just ridiculous. So exiled for date raping Sud, Enlil learns of the hidden weapons. Sud becomes Enlil's spouse. And then Enlil bears a son named Nanar. Ninmah joins Enki in the Abzu and bears him daughters. Nenki, Enki's spouse, arrives with their son Marduk. See, they named their son Marduk here. Going back to the conversation we were having with the email from Cherry earlier. Clans form on Earth as Enki and Enlil beget more sons. Beset by hardships, the Igigi launch a coup against Enlil. Ninurta defeats their leader Anzu in aerial battles. These are what I interpret to be like the Virmanas that are talked about in Eastern mythology. The Anunnaki, driven to produce gold faster, mutiny. Enlil and Ninurta denounce the mutineers. Enki suggests to artificially fashion primitive workers. So here we go. Now we are jumping smack dab into the fifth tablet. From the planet Lamu, the chariot departed towards Earth. The journey continued. Around the moon, they made an orbit and went there to explore a way station. Around the Earth, they made more orbits and slowed down so they could have a splashdown in the water. In the waters beside Eridu, Nungal brought the chariot down to a quay by Enlil constructed. They stepped off. Boats were no longer needed. So there was some sort of platform built of the spaceport there by the water, probably in the Red Sea. Enlil and Enki, their sister, with embraces, greeted with Nungal, the pilot. They locked arms. The heroes, male and female, by the present heroes were greeted with shouts. Everything that was brought on the spaceship was quickly unloaded. Rockets, skyships, and the tools that were designed by Enki, and provisions and food of all kinds. Of all that transpired on Nibiru, the death, Ninmah was told of the death and burying of Alalu by her brothers. She also related to them the story of the way station that on Lamu that was being commanded by Anzu. Enki uttered his approval of that, and Enki's words gave them bewilderment. That is a news decision. His word is unalterable. Ninmah to Enlil was saying, for the malady's relief I have brought. Ninmah to her brother said, from her pouch, a bag of seeds she brought, seeds to be sown in the soil. A host of bushes shall sprout from the seeds, and they will produce a juicy fruit. The juice shall form an elixir, for drinking by the heroes it shall be. Their ailments it will chase away, and it will make their mood happier. In a cool place, the seeds need to be sown. By warmth and water, they need nourishing. So Ninmah to her brothers did say, the place that for this is perfect, I will show you, Enlil said. And it's, of course, this is probably going to be the Eden, Edin. It is where the landing place was fashioned, where an abode of cedar wood I have made. In Enlil's skyship, the two of them, Enlil and Ninmah, soared towards the sky. To the landing place in the snow-covered mountains by the cedar forest, brother and sister went. On the great stone platform, the skyship landed. To Enlil's abode they went. Once inside, Enlil embraced her. With fervor, he kissed Ninmah. Oh, my sister, my beloved, Enlil to her whispered. By her loins, he grabbed her. Uh-oh. Keep it in the family. This is where the interbreeding started. Into her womb his semen he did not pour. I got to stop right there. I got to say this before I can go any further. That is the greatest thing I've ever been able to say on radio in my almost 4 years now of doing this show. I got to say it one more time. You ready for this? Greatest thing I've ever been able to say on the show. Here it is.
Into her womb his semen he did not pour. He did not pour her semen. Because she waited for mine. Because she wanted to suck Satan's cock. Yes.
Into her womb his semen he did not pour. Oh, that's just beautiful. Poetry. So basically, he had sex with his sister, but he didn't come inside of her. He pulled out. Well, good job. I can't believe Sumerian text went as far as to tell us about pulling out. You know, there you go. There's a message in the Sumerian text. Yeah, there is a message in the Sumerian text, you dumb fucks. Pull out. Teach that to Britney Spears and her sister. My God. It's been there for thousands of years. So he fucked his sister, but he pulled out, so it's all good. Is basically what they're telling us. So the moral of the story is it's okay to have sex with your sister as long as you pull out. Well, thank you. Thank you, Sumerian text. Thank you, Anunnaki. Thank you for clearing that up for us. We were all confused. Thank you. Of our son Ninurta, I will bring you word, Ninmah said to him softly. He is a young prince. He is ready for adventure, and he is ready to join you on earth. He is prepared. If you stay here on earth, let us, Ninurta, bring over our son, Enlil to her said. To the landing place, heroes were arriving. Rocket ships and sky ships were carried to the platform. From the pouch of Ninmah, the seeds were obtained. In the valley soils, they were sown. A fruit from Nibiru was to be grown here on earth. In the skyship, Enlil and Ninmah returned to Eridu. On the way, Enlil showed her the landscape and showed her the extent of the Eden. From the skies, Enlil to her explained the plans. I have designed an everlasting plan, he was saying to her. That for which all time construction shall determine I have laid out. That means like he's talking about like all time construction. He's talking about, see, that's a very interesting thing. That's something I've come across in my research and wondered about, but never been able to really prove. He says that for which all time construction shall determine I have laid out. And what I mean, I take that to believe from my research is this. Now I could be off the mark on this, but I'm going to tell you, I've come across that, but seeing that statement there is very telling. It seems that when you see the way that cities are laid out and the grids are laid out, and you can even look at official mainstream documentation on the civilization of Sumeria, the first civilization. And they got it right. Even when you go look at like the Library of Congress, real milquetoast mainstream information, historical information regarding Sumeria, you find that it talks about how they had societal structure that we follow to this day set up, one shot, one try. Where'd they get that knowledge from? They had sewage systems. They had, credit systems. They had a very sophisticated society that's not much different from ours today. And that's what he's saying here. And so when you see new cities built and you see the way these grids are built and the way they put them on certain parallels and things, it almost gives you the idea that the reason why we see, the Statue of Liberty, Queen Semiramis, going back to this time, or we see, Washington, D.C. built the way it is and these obelisks everywhere. It's almost as if it's in the elite's playbook that from this ancient creed from the Anunnaki that they have to continue to build throughout time in the way that Enlil had said that they had to build. Away from Eridu, where dry lands begin, I shall make my quarters. La Arsa will be its name, a place for directing it shall become. On the banks of the Buranau River of the deep waters it will be located. A twin thereof a city shall in a future arise. Lagash I shall name it. Between the two plans a line I have drawn. 6 leagues thereafter a healing city shall come into being. A city of your own it shall be, Shurabak. The Haven City I shall name it. On the center line it shall be located. To the 4th city it shall be leading. Nibiru, key. Earth's crossing place I will name it. A bond, heaven. Earth in it I shall establish. The tablets of destiny it shall house. All missions it will control. The tablets of destiny. This could be what they've been looking for. So the tablets of destiny have been, see, I didn't know that, or have been stored on Earth. And that's what all this search for the Sumerian cylinder seals and clay tablets has been about. They're looking for the tablet of destiny with all these, basically these missions for what to do on Earth and in other places. They very well probably have found them by this point. With Eridu, 5 cities there shall be counted. To eternity they shall exist. On a crystal tablet, Enlil to Ninmah was showing this master plan. On the tablet, she saw more markings and inquired of them to Enlil. Beyond the 5 cities, I shall place a chariot, and I shall from henceforth build this chariot, a spaceship. From Nibiru to Earth directly to arrive. No, not a spaceship, a chariot place. This is talking about a Stargate. Because he's not saying he's going to build a spaceship itself, a chariot or a skyship like they refer to it. It says a chariot place, meaning a place that is itself a chariot to carry you from one place to another. This is a Stargate. Let me read it again. That's exactly what this is. Watch my film, The Sumerian Stargate, Norway Spiral film, Reality of Illusion Series Part 2. It's up on YouTube. It's also at my website, theglobalreality.com, because that's where I drew all that from. Because I had remembered, I had read about this somewhere. This is the first time I've seen it again in a very long time. Because I think I had seen, probably clips from this book posted on a website and stuff long ago, but never come across it again. And that's where I got that from was in that movie. Because there are, in that film, I've got a picture of a Sumerian, it's like a big rock carving thing. And the guy's got a watch on. It just appears that he's in a fucking Stargate. So that's exactly what this is. So he's talking about the Anunnaki built a Stargate beyond the 5 cities. So if we determine exactly where these 5 cities are, and we know they're in the Middle East, we'd be able to determine where that Stargate is now, wouldn't we? Beyond the 5 cities, a chariot place I shall henceforth build. From Nibiru to Earth directly arrive. So meaning you can derive directly from Earth by just walking through this chariot place. There again, it's a portal. Enlil was responding to her. Why by Anu's plans for Lamu? Enlil was bewildered. Ninmah then understood. My brother, magnificent is your plan for the 5 cities. The creation of Shurabak, a city for healing, is my abode. For my own to be is a matter for which I am grateful. Beyond that plan, do not transgress your father. Do not offend your brother. You are as wise as you are beautiful, Enlil said to her. In the Abzu, Enki plan, it was also conceiving plans on where to build his house. For where would he prepare a hero's dwelling? Where in the bowels of the earth to enter? So Enki wanted to build his where? Underground in the bowels of the earth. Where the first underground, this is why people have found these, ancient underground tunnels under the earth. They were built there thousands of years ago. In his skyship, the extent of the Abzu was measured, and he did survey its districts very carefully. A distant land, the Abzu was, beyond the waters from the Eden, it was away. A rich land it was, bursting with riches, perfect in fullness. Mighty rivers rushed across the region. Great waters there rapidly flowed. An abode by the following waters Enki himself established. To the midst of the Abzu, to a place of pure waters, Enki betook himself. In that land, the place of deepness, Enki determined for the heroes into the earth for the bowels to descend. The earth sputter Enki there established there within the earth to make a gash. So he cut open the earth to make a way to go, to make tunnels into the earth. By way of tunnels, they reached earth's innards, and they hoped to uncover its golden veins, meaning they hoped to dig into the earth and pull the gold out. Nearby that which crunches and that which crushes he in place, which we determined that was some big mover, some big thing, that machine that did the work of mining the gold. The gold-bearing ores to crunch and crush and to be carried by the skyships to the landing place in the Cedar Mountains to be brought. Therefore, by rocket ships to the way station on Lamu to be transported. So they transported them from Earth to the way station on Mars and then to Nibiru. Makes total sense. On Earth, more heroes were arriving. Some to the Eden they were assigned, and some to the Abzu they were given tasks. Larasa and Lagash by Enkul were constructed, and Sir Barak for Ninmah he did establish. Within her therein a host of female healers were dwelling. In Nibiru, Ki, in Lil, a bond heaven earth was assembling. From there, all missions to command. So they were going to command all their new missions for their new, revitalizing and re-strengthening of Nibiru from Earth. That was how they were launching their operations. Between Iridu and the Abzu, Enki was journeying back and forth for supervising. On Mars, construction was progressing, and a way station for the heroes was starting to be constructed. A shar, 2 shars, which is a period of time, were lasted for the preparation. So it took the preparations, took them a few years. Then Anu gave the word. And now you'll see where this came from. Again, much older than Christianity. Anu gave the word. We know what the word is. On earth, the 7th day it was. A day of resting. At the very beginning was decreed by Enki on the 7th day. So the idea of the 7th day being day of rest goes back to the time of Enki. Not way before the Bible, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. God damn, get over it. At every place the heroes